If you've won money in a US casino and you're a tax resident of the UK or some EU countries, they should be paying you out 100% of your winnings and not withholding any for US taxes. Now, unfortunately, this isn't always what happens. Often players will find that 30% of their winnings get taken by the casino and sent over to the IRS. In this video, I'm going to explain to you why that happens and what you can do to make sure this doesn't happen in future, and potentially how you can claim back any money that they have wrongly withheld in the past. So if you're new to this channel, I'm Andy. I've been an international tax advisor since 2014, a chartered accountant since 2018, and on this channel I help you navigate the complex world of international tax. So first off, it's important to understand why this 30% is being withheld from you in the first place, and it pertains to a US tax law which basically says that non-residents by default should pay 30% income taxes on any gambling winnings they make whilst they are in the US. Now, there's an important caveat here, and this is for any countries which you are tax resident of that have a US double tax treaty in place. So for example, the UK has a double tax treaty in place with the US, and this double tax treaty effectively eliminates withholding taxes on gambling income made whilst you're in the US, meaning that if you're a tax resident of the UK, you can go to the US, you can make some gambling income there, come back, not pay any income taxes in the US by virtue of this treaty, and then also you're not going to be paying any income taxes in the UK because the local UK law states that no gambling income is taxable on the person who wins the money. So that's basically an overview of what's happening in the first place. By default, casinos should be withholding 30% tax on non-residents, but for people who are residents of somewhere which has this double tax treaty agreement in place, then this withholding payment is not necessary. Now, why does it happen then if you are from the UK? Why are they withholding this 30% tax? Well, the casino has an obligation to be prudent and make sure that they manage, IRS obligations accordingly, and they need proof, basically, that you are a resident of one of these countries. And so in order to convince the casino that you are legitimately a tax resident of one of these other countries, you need to prepare some paperwork, submit that to them. They might have to review that, and then they'll come back to you and say, okay, we approve, we're happy that you are a tax resident of this country, and we'll therefore give you all of your income tax free. So this is where a W-8 BEN form comes into play. Now, this is a form which basically validates that you are who you say you are. You're from the tax jurisdiction which you say you are, and you're not a US tax resident. So when it comes to filling out a W-8 BEN form, it's mostly self-explanatory, asking for simple personal details such as name and address. But the most significant sections will be at 5 and 6, where it's asking for a form of tax identification number. Now, one of them is asking for an ITIN, and one of them is asking for an FTIN. Now, this confuses a lot of people because an ITIN is a US issued tax identifying number, which you can apply for a non-resident, but the process is usually quite painful and can be very long and drawn out. Sometimes it can take up to 6 months to get issued this, and so this puts a lot of people off. They think that I need to have an ITIN, I need to apply for this, and I need to wait for this to come before I can fill out this form. But that's not true. So what you can use instead is in the FTIN section, you can use your tax reference from the country in which you actually are tax resident. So for example, if you're from the UK, you can use your unique taxpayer reference that you use on your self-assessment tax returns, or you can use your national insurance number for this section. Similarly, for other countries, the OECD actually has a list of equivalent tax identification numbers. You can go through this list, and I'll link this below, and you can check which country you're tax resident in, and check what tax identification number is appropriate in terms of reflecting this on a W-8 BEN form. So basically the form will be whatever your local country tax residence number is. That'll be the most important part to put on it, and then you basically send that hand it over to the casino, ideally before you get paid out your winnings, because if you do this, they can review it, they can see that you've put on your taxpayer reference from your home country, and then they can pay out your income basically without any withholding taxes. So ideally, once you've won some money in a casino, you should really just be able to hand over a W-8 BEN form, and this gives them the comfort that you're a resident of one of these tax treaty countries and you don't have to be paying any taxes on this income. However, as mentioned before, the confusion about the ITIN number and how to fill out this form often means that people simply don't fill it in, or they perhaps fill it in incorrectly, and the casino still has to withhold that 30% income tax. So what I do personally is, if I'm ever going to Vegas or something in the States, I'll basically fill in a W-8 BEN form beforehand, make sure it's accurately filled in, and I always have it on me somewhere, even if I'm just leave it lying in my hotel room for a best case scenario where I win some money and I need to go to the counter to collect it. So at that point, you just go to the counter, you hand over your W-8 BEN form. Being able to review that you've got a tax identifying number from another country will give the casino the comfort to know that we can give this person his money because he is eligible for 0% taxes on that income. And that's the ideal process, is you're able to hand that cleanly over and they're happy to give you the cash. Now, that's the ideal situation, but of course that just doesn't happen very often, and most people are kind of left a little bit confused, and casinos often don't have the expertise to kind of guide you through the W-8 BEN process. And so what might happen is that they withhold the 30% taxes because you haven't provided the W-8 BEN, and so this is a case where in order to reclaim that money you will need an ITIN, unfortunately. So this is why we really want to avoid not filling in the appropriate W-8 BEN and giving it at the casino, because this step can be extremely complex and just really time consuming. So in order to reclaim money that has been withheld by the casino, unfortunately you can't get this from the casino, because the casino itself withholds this money but then passes it on to the IRS. So technically it's the IRS that now holds this cash, and it's between you and the IRS to basically sort out this issue. So how do you actually fix this? Well, you need to first apply for an ITIN, and as I said earlier, this can be a long process, and unfortunately I've seen this take up to 6 months. And so you got to apply for this first, and once you have this ITIN number, you're then able to submit what's known as a 1040 NR, which is basically a non-resident US tax return. And on this non-resident US tax return, you're basically disclosing the fact that you paid US taxes despite the fact that you shouldn't be paying them. And this is the effective claim of a refund from US taxes. So that's the situation we want to avoid. If you do get withheld 30% income taxes in the casino, it's not insurmountable. You can claim it back, by going through this process. But ideally, the best thing to really do is have a pre-filled W-8 BEN form ready to go for whenever you go to a US casino, and you'll be able to satisfy them immediately when you go up to the counter to collect your winnings, and you'll be able to take 100% of the cash home. So hopefully this is a useful overview. If you've got any specific questions or comments in this area, just feel free to let me know in the comments section below. Cheers.